Our Favorite Tool for Entrepreneurs podcast will address tools that are useful to startups and existing businesses. We will also cover other aspects of the launch and growth of entrepreneurial ventures. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden. I'm Professor Gary Palin.
Yeah, and I'm Ryan Budden.
This podcast is valuable to entrepreneurs in both launch and growth modes.
That's absolutely right. We'll go over some tools, get you into hyper-growth mode. How can we see some hockey stick growth in your business?
Ryan, nascent entrepreneurs in search of an idea to create the business often struggle. And I find the concept of pain points is a great place for them to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, oftentimes if someone is searching for a product or service, it's because of a pain point. So using that as an idea generation technique is a great way of coming up with something.
So would you mind just giving an overview or defining what is a pain point in an entrepreneurial environment?
Yeah, so a pain point is just something that's, disrupting your daily life, or something that isn't as well done as it could be. Just something that could be done better in your life, in anybody's life. So using that as what could, as in the reverse, from an entrepreneur perspective, what isn't being done perfectly in the world, and how could I do it better?
Yeah, I always look at it too. It's not something that irritates you, but something that really gets you excited, that you're ready to boil over. There's a pain and you want to solve that pain.
Exactly. Yeah, providing value by solving one of those pain points.
And where I always look at it when I'm dealing with pain points is I try to identify what is the pain point, but then I immediately start to think, do I have a solution to the pain point? If the answer is yes, then I start asking how many other people have this pain. And therefore, if there's enough, is the market viable? The size of the market is viable. And then I move towards, how do I monetize this bad boy? That's my flow process to utilizing pain points. What are your thoughts on those issues?
Yeah, so I agree with that same similar flow. Another step that I really like to take is looking at who else is trying to address that pain point. Mm-hmm. What's being done currently, even if it's a little bit tangential to that irritation, that's being done well. What could they be doing better? And oftentimes you can kind of fine tooth your idea by looking at how the market already exists. You can also, to go to your final point, get a pretty good idea of how big the market is. If there's nobody doing it, is that because you're the first person to think of it? Or is it because everybody else has cottoned on that it's not that big of a deal?
Yeah, when I see no one else doing any concept that I'm looking at, that always makes me nervous. And I always start asking, is there a market for it? Why is no one else doing this?
That's exactly right.
And pain points could be in all different types of areas. Like it could be a financial component. There could be a productivity issue, process. It could be lack of support issues for pain points. So they can go in all different diverse areas.
Yeah. A big one that I often find myself talking and thinking about is waste. What's happening with waste.
When I'm identifying pain points, it doesn't always have to be a personal pain point. But again, with startup entrepreneurs, I recommend they go with a pain point that's personal.
Yeah. A little bit of a closer connection. You can personally talk about it. You don't have to rely on third-party feedback every single step of the way.
You move beyond that. You can identify pain points through some research and talking to people within the industry. And that very often is where product development comes from within more structured business. But from a startup issue, I think there's more passion when it's something you're personally addressing that irritates the heck out of yourself.
Exactly right. And passion is truly key to projects being successful. As we've talked about in our investor talks and all throughout this podcast series, getting investors and people buy products from other people. They don't buy the product.
I don't know if you experienced this exercise when you were one of my students, but what I very often do in class is I'll break students up into groups, say of 5. I might have 6 groups of 5, and I'll ask them to write down 10 things that irritate the heck out of them. And that's the first step. And once they've accomplished that, I'll ask them to identify 2 of those things where they think they come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Then from that, I'll say how many other people have the problem. And then from that one you choose, how would you monetize it? And it's amazing. Within an hour, I might have 4 or 5 viable business concepts that are worth looking at. They may not be viable businesses yet, but they're worth pursuing. And it's a simple exercise that takes about an hour.
Yeah, I do specifically remember that from your class, actually. I vaguely remember us trying to pitch something extremely silly to do with shaving in the shower. And anyway, it became a privacy nightmare, as you can imagine.
So it doesn't take an awful lot of time. You can flush through ideas very fast using that process.
That's exactly right.
So what are the first steps would you recommend, or second steps, if you will, for someone to identify potential opportunities using pain points?
Yeah, so I'm an ideas guy. So I actually have a list on my phone of every time a pain point comes up, I just jot it down. And then typically, to see if it's viable, I'll just try and flush that idea a little bit out. And what I mean by that is walking through how big of an annoyance is that in day-to-day life. Is this the only time it's ever come up? Is it a reoccurring pain? Is this something I often feel? And then simply typing it in Google. I have no idea how many times my work at the Entrepreneurship Center locally comes up with somebody that's thought out this idea for dozens and dozens of hours. And I'll type it in Google to see what's happening. And there's somebody doing exactly what their pain is, or, a competitor or somebody even with a similar name as they've come up with. So just typing it in Google and seeing what the world is doing to address this pain problem is typically my first step after coming up with an idea.
Once you've identified the pain point, you can't just internalize it. You have to go out and do qualitative and quantitative research to further understand what the pain point is and determine whether it's worth moving forward.
That's exactly right.
And I know from at least a few of the businesses that you've started, it was a direct result of personal pain points.
They were, yeah. Most of the businesses I've started are direct results of personal pain points, from college and social host liability, coming up with a way to manage that for organizations, to concierge services in Nashville, where I'm currently located. A lot of that came out of, friction or pain points in my everyday life.
And if you recall, one of the more viable businesses that I got involved with was because the electric fence was defective and I lost my dog. Right. And from that point, we developed a GPS tracking system to identify dogs using geofencing.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
And as simple as losing a dog.
Yeah, it happens to people every day, all day.
Yeah, that was the quick part when we looked at how many people lose their dogs in the United States. It's the market we were looking at. And then the passion for dogs, that was fairly easy research to move forward with the concept.
Oh, absolutely. People are pretty obsessed with their furry friends.
Definitely. What any final thoughts on the concept of pain points that you could advise?
Yeah, I would just say the other thing is let the pain point mellow out for a little while. See if you're still passionate about it a day later, a week later, a month later. And then don't be afraid to talk about it. See if the people around you have that same pain. And if they do, then it might be worth spending a little bit more time. And a lot of people think they have the genius idea off of this pain point and then just will think about it for days and days and days or months, collectively, before they actually get out and see if it's something that other people are having.
Definitely. Well, I think this is an excellent tool to utilize for entrepreneurs, and I highly encourage anyone out thinking of launching a business to play with this concept. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Look forward to talking soon.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to our favorite tools for entrepreneurs, hosted by Professor Gary Palin and Ryan Budden. We trust you enjoy our deep dive into topics assisting in the launch and growth of your entrepreneurial venture. As always, you can head over to ProfSpirit.com to check out all the resources and courses designed to assist entrepreneurs. If you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast on our Spotify and YouTube channels, allowing you to keep abreast of our podcast releases in a timely manner. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.